Hello, BookTube. Well, it's an overcast Sunday, so I thought I would engage in my apparently monthly behavior of responding to a video by Diary of a Viking. He's a BookTube channel, a big BookTube channel. I'll leave a link to him down below, specifically to one of his latest videos titled How BookTube Destroyed His Reading. And I went into it, I confess, I'll make two confessions up front. I went into this latest video uh, uh, confession number one is that I went into this latest video with a closed mind, suspiciously. Because when somebody, especially a big channel that has lots of outreach, lots of influence, titles a channel How BookTube Destroyed My Reading, or The Dark Side of BookTube, or Why People Are Quitting BookTube, all of which Diary of the Viking has done. Those are all videos of his. I just naturally assume that it's clickbait, that the title is clickbait, that the influencer doesn't really believe the title. The title is just there to get you to click, which is pretty poor behavior. That's pretty shabby, manipulative behavior. So I went into this thing suspicious. That's confession number one. I did not go in with my usual open mind. And confession number two, I should get right out of the way, is that I watched only 4 minutes of a 10-minute video. Because at around the 4.5-minute mark, without any announcement at all, without any transition at all, he's just talking to you. He's a very personable young man. He's just talking to you about what reading has been like in his life and how BookTube has changed that, and just organically, from one sentence to the next, starts pitching you Squarespace. So not even, I've timestamped this so that you know, not even, and now a word from our sponsor, because without their generous financial support, I would not physically be able to press play. I would not physically be able to lift my finger and hit the record button on a camera. I wouldn't physically be able to do that unless they paid me. It wasn't even that. Instead, it was far more evil than that. The most evil thing by a wide margin that I've ever seen this young man do, which was to put an ad in conversation. Not just lump it onto one or stick it on the side of conversation, but to put it into a conversation. I'm having a conversation about feeling overwhelmed by life, and maybe sometimes you feel overwhelmed about making a website of your own, and you might need Squarespace. Just awful, just horrifying. And to think, I've always said on this channel that when a booktuber starts spouting a commercial like that anymore, I find it really hard to trust what they say about books after that, especially if it's a commercial for a book. This was worse than that, much worse, because of how just smoothly incorporated it was into just the next sentence. I don't think I would trust talking to this guy in real life if he can do that. I wouldn't trust that over dinner I wouldn't find myself, in a Bitcoin commercial. It was grotesque. It took me actually a few seconds. I've never seen an ad done in quite that way on a video. It was disgustingly evil. And so much so that it took me about 30 seconds to realize, oh, wait a minute. He's not talking about his subject anymore. He's trying to sell me something. And then he's going to shift back to his subject, I presume. I stopped watching at that point. But no, I don't mean any real offense to Diary of a Viking, but when your channel gets up above 30,000 subscribers, it's a general inference. It's not ironclad. It doesn't hold in all cases, but you can generally assume that what you're going to hear in the following in the 6 minutes after the ad is the same as what you heard in the 4 minutes before the ad. I don't think I'm missing much. I'm not going to go and look. No, I'm gone from. I might keep subscribing to his channel. I might keep watching the first 4 minutes of every video before he runs out of money, I guess, and needs an infusion of cash in order to keep the camera rolling. But there's no way on earth I'm going to watch a video that has an ad in it, especially in an iniquitous case like this, where the ad is woven into the conversation. Ugh, just disgusting. Just disgusting. So anyway, that's confession number 2. Confession number 1 is that I went into the video with a closed mind because I've seen this guy clickbait this kind of thing before. And confession number 2 is that I didn't watch the whole video. I don't think there were any great revelations after the ad, but I'm not going to listen to you through an ad in order to get to them. The major points at the first 4.5 minutes are all that I'm refuting here, and they're plenty to refute. When I go into a video, a BookTube video, especially a larger channel, I swear, whether it's BookTube or YouTube, I've made a little game in the last year of listening to the first minute of the video and trying to guess the subscriber count. Because I swear that over a certain point, over 20,000, 30,000 subscribers, over 30,000 subscribers, a tone enters into the videos, every video. I don't want to say that there's a marketing team that swoops in at that point. I don't want to say that you're getting webinars behind the scenes. I don't know that there's anything to account for not only that change in tone, but the fact that that change in tone is absolutely uniform, that it's the same in every channel. But I have never been wrong. I start watching a video without looking at any of the down below information, and within a minute or two, I can guess certainly this channel has more than 50,000 subscribers. Not because of the professionalism of the edits or anything like that, but because of the way they're talking. Because of the way they're talking. That's how I can guess. And typically speaking, when you have a channel like this, they're going to make the clickbait claim in the title, and then they're going to do a dipsy doodle. They're going to do a flip in the first minute of the video. They're going to first say, now let me be clear. Now, don't misunderstand me. I assure you, I don't think that my title is correct. In this case, that BookTube destroyed my reading. Let me be sure. Let me be clear about that. I don't think that. But here's why I think that. They do that flip. So you've actually flipped 3 times. You get the clickbait title, then the disavowal of the clickbait title, and then the thesis of the clickbait title. And the expansion of the clickbait title in this case, in Diary of a Viking's video, is that before YouTube, if he read 5 books a year, he considered it an achievement. Now, according to the latest polling data, according to the latest studies that are done by on non-young people, non-digital natives, crucial that you not poll digital natives, because digital natives have grown up in a world in which they have an outward-facing avatar social media persona and then themselves. They've grown up in a world in which they have those 2 things. They don't have to go to film school anymore or broadcasting school to develop that. They grow up in that world. So when you poll them, you get this, which is why recent polling information says that, for instance, young people don't smoke anymore. Meet the young people, the actual young people, they're hanging off their vape like it was their mother's teat. They're smoking more by an astronomical amount than any generation has before them. But they know what the persona, the avatar, has to say. They know what the avatar has to be like. So you can't poll them about anything. You can't poll them about anything. The simple description of what I'm describing is that we have an entire generation of absolutely molecular level inveterate liars. I don't have to use confrontational language like that, but one way or another, there is that distinct difference. They all grow up that way. So you can't, if you're going to poll how many people in America read, you have to leave that age group completely out of it. Not because they do or don't read, but because you're only going to get this. You're not going to get this. They're going to lie, in other words. They're not going to see it as lying. They're not going to call it lying. But nevertheless, if you poll older people who didn't grow up doing this, then you will find that 5 books a year is something to be proud of. That's a lot. Most people in the United States don't read anything once they're not forced to anymore. Most people in the world don't read anything when they're not forced to anymore. And by most, I mean 99%. I mean, as I've said many times before, the number of active, passionate readers in the world is smaller than the number of people who die from natural causes every day. So we are literally non-existent as a category. Statistically speaking, we are non-existent as a category. Statistically speaking, nobody in the world reads. So Diary of a Viking starts his video by saying that before BookTube, if he read 5 books in a year, he considered that was something good, that was good. And of course, that is good. That little thing scratching you, that little thing crunching under your foot is the first of many straws in the straw man that are all throughout the first 4.5 minutes of his video. Diary of a Viking is a smart, insightful guy, but boy is he fond of arguing in bad faith. I guess it's good for BookTube. I guess it's good for the algorithm to argue in bad faith. He is sure fond of straw man. Most of the characterizations that took place in the first 4.5 minutes of his video, he knows perfectly well are wrong. He does them anyway. And even the characterizations of himself. I'd be willing to bet that before BookTube came in and ruined everything, when he reflected that he read 5 books in a year, I'd be willing to bet that in those wonderful prelapsarian days, he wasn't happy about that and wished it were more. But we'll never know. Because it's more important for the straw man that he portray a lost paradise. So he says in the first 4.5 minutes of his video, before he tries to sell you a car or a mattress or a website service or whatever it is, in the middle of conversation, hey, it's a bright sunny day. When I'm having a bright sunny day, I think about these tinted sunglasses and this particular brand. Have you ever thought about that? I'll have the linguini. It's just disgusting. But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to dwell on that. It just bothers me. In those first 4.5 minutes, he says that he was okay with that. That reading was just something that he happened to do, and that later it became a habit. It became a regular hobby of his, and felt even better until BookTube came along. And then all of a sudden he got the double-edged sword. On the one hand, something that had been a solitary and perhaps a slightly lonely hobby was now a social thing. Now there were all sorts of people out there enthusing about books on videos that he could watch for free that would expand his reading. He says, the first 4.5 minutes, he says that it expanded his reading, and then damningly, he shows B-roll footage of other booktubers, always huge channels. It's clear that he wants to be a huge channel. So they're all huge channels, and it is utterly damning. I wonder if you'll notice, and if you notice, I laughed out loud. I wonder if you'll laugh out loud, because when he's talking about how BookTube expanded his reading, you can look behind him at his bookcase, and then you look at the video clips that he does on the B-roll, and it's the usual channels that you would expect, and it's all literally the exact same books. Exactly the same, not only as each other, but exactly the same as the books behind him in his own video. There's no expanding going on at all. None whatsoever. It's fantasy BookTube. It's fantasy BookTube. In the sense, and fantasy BookTube is of course incredibly cloistered. They don't read anything else. They all have the exact same books behind them. They only talk about the exact same books. And there's no expanding going on at all. Fantasy BookTube is not going to read a work of history or a biography of Charles de Gaulle. They're not going to do it. Not at all. Not at all. There is no expanding going on. But he's talking about, on the one hand, that suddenly I have this solitary habit is now social, and I'm learning a lot, and I'm seeing lots of people enthuse about their books and maybe showing me aspects of those books that I didn't see. But on the other hand, the negative side of that is that I'm starting to feel, he doesn't call it this, but performance anxiety. I'm starting to see people who read more than I do. And because it might start out innocently, because they are enthusing about the books they read, they're naturally making me want to read more. And he, in the first 4.5 minutes of his video, before he starts to sell you hair cream, he says that it did increase his reading. And I'd be willing to bet that a lot of you would agree with that. That at least initially, BookTube did increase your reading. That you read more because not only because you're getting all these people enthusing about all these different books, including some that might be sitting on your shelves that you have been ignoring, but also because you've got all these people devoting more time to reading. That might be underlying for you the fact that maybe you've stopped doing that you've fallen off from that. If you've got a group of people that you're getting to know parasocially, or in some cases socially, I mean, there are plenty of parasocial BookTube channels, plenty of them, oh my God, and there are plenty who want to be parasocial, but there are most of us in this little corner of BookTube are not parasocial. We are just social. You are coming to know us. You're not hanging out, although you're all welcome here for wine and calzones, but it's not like the person that you're seeing on camera is radically different from the person you would meet in person. But either way, you're spending time with these people who are enthusing about what they're reading and who are reading a lot, maybe more than you read. That's naturally going to make you want to read more. And lo and behold, once you want to read more, suddenly you find that you have time. Turns out there's time that you maybe once before said you didn't have. But time becomes an important element in those first 4.5 minutes before we start getting the Brill Cream ad. Time becomes important because Diary of a Viking has had many big things happen in his life. Went on huge vacations and didn't feel like reading. I found that one of those two things is true. The extremes are true, never in the middle. That if somebody goes on a big vacation, if a reader goes on a big vacation, they will either not read at all, or they'll find themselves reading even more. He was the first time. He pretty much stopped reading while he was on what looked from the B-roll footage like epic vacations with his wife. And then his wife became pregnant. And he also talked about qualifying for a more advanced job and whatnot, which takes classes and certification and whatnot, and an active social life. Time becomes important because he's describing how, well, I've got all these things that it seem to have amassed in this one short time period that are taking time away from reading at the same time I'm watching BookTube and seeing all these people do all this reading. And I guess I didn't watch the stuff after the car commercial, but I guess that means in his formulation that has ruined reading for him. And my response to that is the same as my response to all his other doomsaying videos, which is that BookTube didn't do anything. You are doing that yourself. You are doing that to yourself. You are doing that yourself. BookTube is not saying you should read more, loser. No BookTuber is saying that. But you'd never know that from that. That was the first. I can't comment on the rest of his video, but that was the first part of his video before the commercial that he worked into conversation. Hey, this softball game is going really great. I noticed though that you're dragging your feet a little. Maybe you need these special shoe inserts. They're really made of foam rubber. They're ethically sourced. They're really well priced. They come in a whole bunch of colors and even have their own incorporated scents that you. Can I tell you a little more about them? It's a nice day, isn't it? Oh, your kid look. You'd never talk to such a person again. If they worked a commercial into conversation, you'd never talk to them again. But before that commercial break, was the main import of the clickbait title, and then the dipsy doodle was before BookTube. I didn't have all these other readers to compare myself to, and it has warped my view of what constitutes good reading. But it has not. You did. You did that. How did what constitutes good reading change because you saw what other people did? That's ridiculous. Unless you're insecure enough for that to matter to you. Which is a you problem, not a BookTube problem. But that was just the 4.5 minutes of the video that I watched. That didn't even touch on the comments. Oh my God. I'll leave a link to Diary of a Viking's video. If you watch the video, I don't know if you can stand to watch the whole of it. I don't know if you can stand to have him shift without changing his tonal register at all into a commercial and then back out again. If you don't find that creepy, then you can watch the whole video. But if you watch the video, do not miss the comments. You've got to read the comment section, because the comment section for me was more of a revelation even than the video. The video is, he puts out a quality product. It looks really good, but it is a fairly standard bit of griping about BookTube. Misguided griping about BookTube. If you're such an insecure little preschooler that what other people do is going to make you feel bad about what you're doing, well, whose fault is that but yours? But the comment section was not to be missed. First of all, I couldn't help but notice something that I have been told by I have a couple of friends who do YouTube for a living, and I have a couple of other friends who want to do it for a living. They're really close to doing it for a living. And they all report the same thing, which is that past a certain number of subscribers, your comments field becomes a breeding ground for lunatics, which is why so many big channels just axiomatically say, oh, I don't look at the comments at all. I don't touch them in any way. And Diary of a Viking must have adopted that, because it doesn't look like he looks at his comments. He certainly doesn't seem to answer any. Maybe one by a friend. But with larger YouTubers, that's just axiomatic with them. Oh, I don't even look at the comment section. No, I don't do that at all. Poisonous, of course. Elitist, of course. Just the noxious side of, hey, I'm going to make this a showbiz career. I really don't care about you except for your money. So give me your money and your eyeball clicks, which is the same thing. I really don't care about you otherwise. I want to make sure you know that. It's all about the product. This is just about the product. This is just about the product, said over and over again in a video. If you're going to do something like that, you're going to make it clear like that, okay, well, I appreciate the directness. I can see myself out. I don't want anything to do with you. But I have noticed a common thread among YouTuber friends of mine, which is that they comment that their comments field becomes just a congery of lunatics. And there are a lot of lunatics in this video, in the comments of this video. Lots and lots of dumb people. Lots of people say, yeah, I don't care anymore. Yeah, quantity over quality. Yeah. Or Godbothers showing up to tell them that, you know, reading's fine, sure, but it's nothing compared to the glory of our Lord. And so on. And so all that kind of lunatic fringe stuff in his comments field, but also lots of people discussing the subject of whether or not BookTube made them feel like an underachiever. I don't dismiss that completely, because I've heard that from some of you, people who aren't crazy, or at least, you know what I mean. I don't think any of us would really pass an objective test, but a number of you have said over the years to me, have said, I don't know, I understand what you're saying, and it is me, but nevertheless, when I watch BookTube, I feel like an underachiever. It makes me feel competitive in a sense, in an area of my life that felt blissfully uncompetitive before I started watching BookTube. I've known people who not only stopped watching BookTube because of that, but stopped making videos because of that. I don't see it myself. I really think it's something that you import 100% into the platform. But in the comments on that video, there were plenty of people saying that they felt that way, that they ration their time, maybe that they stay away. They also talked about Bookstagram and also Goodreads for the same reason. But I couldn't help but notice, maybe it's just my ego importing things, I couldn't help but notice that although my name is never brought up specifically in the comment section, I hover over it like Marley's ghost. Which made me wonder, it makes me wonder still, why doesn't at least one person in that comment section at least have the cojones to mention me by name? One commentator said, well, you know, even if you do it professionally, I don't see how such numbers are possible. And a number of people in the comment section just flat out said, you know, booktubers lie. They don't care about stories. They're just lying about how much they read. Maybe you could read 50 books in a year. Maybe you could. But if you read 100 books in a year, you're dumping comprehension off the back of the sled. You're not going to understand anything you're reading if you're racking up numbers like that. And 200 books a year? Come on, please. When these lying booktubers say they read 200 books a year, what they mean is they listen to 200 books at 3 times audio speed or whatnot. Which naturally made me feel a little self-conscious. And not only on behalf of myself, although I have already read in 2025 more books than most people read in 3 or 4 years. So my year-end total, I don't mention it on this channel anymore, I don't even allude to it, but my year-end total, well, if these self-satisfied, booktubers are just lying commenters in Diary of a Viking's video are saying that 100 books in a year is totally impossible unless you don't know anything about what you're reading, if they're saying that, then I think they would literally stroke out if they heard anything like my year-end total. So I'm not talking about that so much as I'm talking about your year-end total. This little corner booktuber has a lot of really good, strong readers, and it's not like we're lying. And it's not like we only read comic books or we don't care about story or anything like that. It's that we make the time. Simple as that. We make the time. If you don't do that, well, you know, I've got to polish leather for a while, and I gotta sit on the porch and ponder, which means a tobacco addiction. That's what it means. It's code for a tobacco addiction. Yeah, I gotta spend time with the family, which means hit your wife. And try hard, but fail to remember the names of your children. I got to do all these things. So, I don't have all the time in the world. Well, okay. if you're going to be the quantity over quality, I got to burnish leather for a while. If you're going to be that kind of faker, then kindly don't say that reading 200 books in a year is impossible. If you're saying that you don't devote time to do it, then don't say that it's impossible for the people who do. Plenty of people in this little corner of BookTube read all the time. All the time, or a large chunk of the time that used to be spent wasting time is now spent reading. You can rack up a lot of books that way, right? It's not just me. I'm a fast reader. I'm perfectly willing to admit that. But look at other favorite channels of yours in this little corner of BookTube. Michael K. Vaughan is a very busy guy. Manages to read. He manages to read. He does a weekly reading report. It's not like in his weekly reading report he says, "Oh, I twiddled my thumbs." He doesn't just sit there in silence for those videos. He manages to read despite being really busy. Ollie at Criminali has a job. People forget that. He has a family. He also has a job. That's not BookTube. He does a lot of reading. It's possible to do. All of you know this. I'm preaching to the choir here. I'm responding to a lot of these people, all of these angry people in the comments section of that video by Diary of a Viking. A lot of angry people in that comment section saying that 50 books a year, come on. The booktubers are lying. They don't know. They don't read for plot. They only read for plot. They don't read for the fine art of storytelling. And people going further than that, saying that if you claim to read 200 books a year, well, then you don't know anything about them. You couldn't tell me anything about the book. You're just mindlessly racking up titles. Sorry, I can't help but laugh. I'm accountable for the books that I read, and have demonstrated on this channel ad nauseum that I can talk about them in detail at length. And my annual number is a little higher than 200. It is possible to do. It is absolutely possible to do. It is just a muscle. So if you're going to watch his video, first of all, be prepared for the creepy insert of ad talk into normal talk. Without a break, without any kind of announcement. Be prepared for that. I don't know if maybe it'll creep you out as much as it did me. If you're not prepared for that, if you don't want that to happen, if you don't want to experience that, then just put the video on pause and just read the comments. The comment section, I'm dying to know what you'll make of them. That's all. Because I think there's BookTube and there's BookTube, right? I hate to say it, but I think it's true. Maybe I'm wrong. I think the people in this little corner of BookTube do pretty well for reading numbers. I think they do pretty well for that. Sarah at the Bookish Knitter was racking up a weekly reading report while she was preparing for heart surgery, for Pete's sake. If you all, I'm preaching to the choir, you all know that if you make time for reading, you will make time for reading. It can be done. In even the busiest life, it can be done. Diary of a Viking says that he is expecting a baby. They're expecting a child. He and a lot of the people in his comments field attribute it to God, in which case it would be news. I'm pretty sure that goblins had nothing to do with it. I think I probably know the process by which that child was conceived. But if this, I think, is the first child, so I wanted to put a comment on his video saying, well, you don't have to worry about your reading because you're not even going to be sleeping for the next 5 years. So you're not going to worry about reading. You're going to read children's books, and that's it. Unless he is a happy exception. I've known people that went through, I know one person who went through having 2 children and still managed to do a huge amount of reading every week, so it can be done. But if you read those comments, my main question for you, first of all, my main reaction to Diary of a Viking's video is BookTube didn't ruin anything for you. You did that yourself. But my main question for you, which is what I always turn these response videos around to, is what amount of this do you feel? I'm assuming it's not much, but am I wrong about that? I mean, I'm assuming that, first, in one of the comments on that video, somebody says, oh, I look at these BookTube videos and you've got this thumbnail, they're holding up an enormous pile of books and they're saying, look at all that I read. Doesn't this make me cool? Show me a video that does that. As I've said many times before, show me an example instead of all these straw men. Show me an example of any BookTuber anywhere saying, I read this many books. That makes me cool. I wish you read more books. You should read more books. There isn't a single example of that, which is a perfectly good definition of a straw man. If there's not a single example of what you're talking about as a problem, then it's probably not a problem. You're probably making it up. So that's my response to that video. But what about your own experiences? I mean, here we're all enthusing about the books that we read, and it's just a well-known fact in this corner of BookTube that some people just read faster than others. Some people have more time to read than others. Some people have plenty of time and still choose to read very slowly, very, very absorbingly and meditatively or whatnot, or just are keyed that way. I don't think there's much anxiety on the subject here at all. But am I wrong? Especially you people who are new to this little corner of BookTube, do you feel, geez, these people are inadvertently, but still making me feel like I don't read enough? I'd love to know it. It has to be inadvertently, because it's never openly. It's never intentionally. No booktuber in the history of the platform has ever done that. And yet that comes up in every one of these BookTube is destroying me videos, whether it's by Diary of a Viking or anybody else. They always start with that straw man. Oh, you've got all these booktubers out here bragging about how much they read and saying you're a loser if you don't. Okay, show me one. Show me a booktuber who says that. No booktuber says that. No booktuber ever has said that. But there might be some effect like that from example. That could happen. You might look at this and think, well, gee, it's not so much that this person is telling me that I should read more, but watching their videos makes me want to read more, and I just don't think I have the time. Or the cognitive wherewithal, maybe you're just a slow reader, and so this is just impossible. I wonder how many people out there don't start a BookTube channel because they're worried that they don't read enough. I wonder if that's true. A couple of people in that comment section of that video said something along those lines. I wonder if we're losing people because they think they need to keep up a treadmill. I would hate to think that. But anyway, it's a subject for discussion. Anyway, I think I could probably propose a more honest discussion than the one that was being proposed at Diary of a Viking, because I don't think his discussion was free of dirty pool. But I am, unless I can interest you in this pool table. Excellent action. Anyway, let me know what you think. Has BookTube ruined reading for you? Has it destroyed reading for you? Has it nuked reading for you? I'd love to know. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. I'll leave a link to that video in case you can stomach it, and I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.